So, hey everyone, good afternoon. I'm Michelle Johnson from Granite State Grazers, and we are working with Wolfe's Neck Farm in Freeport, Maine today. And Leah Puro is going to be presenting soil health research. This is our second to last winter learning series, and for all of you who've stuck with us, thank you. It's been really good. And just a note, I know a lot of people want the recordings. We have run out of Zoom space. So I am putting together a YouTube channel. It will be linked from our website. I will send the links to all our partnering organizations, and you can follow us on Facebook, and we will be broadcasting it there when it's done. So Leah's going to start. I want you to put your questions in the question and answers. She has two parts to her presentation, and after the first part, we'll have questions about the first part, and then we'll go on to the second part. So I'm going to take myself off, and Leah, go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Michelle, for the introduction. So hi, everyone. It's great to be here speaking with you today. As Michelle mentioned, I'm the Ag Research Coordinator at Wolfe's Neck Center for Agriculture and the Environment in Freeport, Maine. And so today we're going to talk about some research we have going on at Wolfe's Neck Center more broadly, take a quick break for questions and comments from you, and then dig into our work on in-field soil health assessments through one of our funded research initiatives. So a little bit about Wolfe's Neck Center, for those of you who may be unfamiliar with our organization. We're a nonprofit organic dairy and vegetable farm. We have a public production farm, an educational center, a research center, and a camping ground, making the farm quite a bustling tourist destination as well as a functional farm. Our management practices reflect these multi-layered goals of our operation. We started our dairy production here in 2015, and prior to that, we had beef cattle on the property. Currently, we have about 30 milking cows, 25 dry cows and heifers that comprise our herd. We also have a dozen sheep and goats, laying hens and broilers in the summer, and we recently got in our pigs for the year. We're also home to a vegetable apprenticeship program and host dairy apprentices through the dairy grazing apprenticeship, as we believe that inspiring and training young farmers is integral to our agricultural and food systems. Over the last 2 years, we've been building up our research project portfolio and investing in equipment to conduct research on agricultural practices that can hold up in the face of unpredictable weather patterns and climate change. So a little bit about our research goals. So some of our research goals, one is to track our greenhouse gas emissions through reducing dairy emissions and increasing soil carbon. Our second one, our research projects focused on greenhouse gas emissions and soil ecological health. And then our third research initiative is Open Team, which stands for Open Technology Ecosystem for Agricultural Management. And through that, we provide feedback to software developers and explore best practices of these tools to support hubs, which are farms in our network. And I'll go a little bit into that later. So first, we're going to start with our on-site research. And for that, we have 3 research projects that we've started over the last 2 years. So our first one is our Bovine BurpBuster project. And this is an animal feed trial that explores the relationship between supplemental seaweed and cow diets to reduce enteric methane emissions. So we're deep in this study right now. We just started it about 3 weeks ago. And we are measuring the methane emissions that come off of their breath while they consume a grain supplement. We are keeping track of milk production per animal per day, milk quality. We're taking blood samples and fecal samples and urine samples just to make sure that everything is working within their systems as it should be. And we're going to layer on another component of this project where we're looking at soil health and soil carbon during the study to assess any correlation between their diet and soil properties through their animal waste to see if it reduces emissions on the landscape itself. Our second project that we're working on is a summer forages project. And this, we got a grant from the NRCS, a conservation innovation grant. It's a demonstration plot of summer forages that were established using minimum tillage methods. So the purpose of the study is to explore forage season extension and forage quality during the hot and dry periods during the summer months in Maine. And so we're using these low-till methods to minimize our disruption to the soil ecosystem. And so last year, as you can see in this photo down here, last year we had a pretty small area set up, and we had 5 different varieties of summer annuals in there. We had a soybean, a tillage radish, bird's foot trefoil, millet, and sorghum. And we grazed some of our cows through it. We took the forage samples and sent them off for analysis. This year we'll be expanding this trial quite a bit. We're going to use a larger piece of land and do bigger sections so that we can really monitor the changes that we're seeing. And we'll also add in a soil sampling component to it as well, to see how it's impacting our soils. And this was so important last year, especially in the face of the drought. We saw that adding summer forages can really be beneficial to your grazing systems, especially in the Northeast. And then our last big project on site is this hay versus grazed pasture project. And so Wolfe's Neck Center has multiple pastures that are spread fairly far apart. And because we're a dairy, we don't graze all of them. So some of them we're able to graze with the dairy herd that are close to the barn, and other pastures are hayed. This hay provides the winter and early spring feed for cows. We are continuing research that was started by the University of New Hampshire several years ago to understand the impacts of grazing versus haying on pasture plants and soils. So for our soils, we conducted in-field soil health assessments on each field. We collected data on water infiltration rate, bulk density, general soil chemical lab analysis, and soil microbial biomass tests. And then for our forage, we assessed forage composition, density, overall biomass, and quality prior to grazing or haying. We had an intern here from Tufts this last summer who did the continuation of the study, and she's currently working on the data analysis and writing a report for her thesis on this. So we're really excited to get those results and see if we've seen any changes over time from 2016 until now. And moving into the future, we're planning to do this intensive soil sampling every 3 to 4 years. So that is a little bit of background of what we have all going on the farm currently. And this is where I just want to pause for a minute and see if we have any questions or comments in the chat. So I will pop that up. What varieties of bird's foot trefoil were used in the summer forages trial? I honestly do not know, but I can get back to you on that. The seed was purchased about 2 years ago, which was before I was here, but I'll get back to you and let you know. We had 0 germination on it though. So that was.
Leah, I was just going to say there is a question in the chat box for you.
I see. Doubles. Are you always adding it into lightly tilled plots? Are you also experimenting with adding these forages directly into existing pastures using a no-till drill? So we did actually use a no-till drill to put these in. We just did a very light tillage over the field, and that was primarily due to timing, just because we got into the fields a little bit later than we had anticipated. So ideally for this year, we'd like to mow pretty low to the ground and then just use the no-till drill to go directly into the forages. That is definitely the vision of where we want this project to go. Are there any other questions right now?
Doesn't look like it.
Great. Then I will move on. All right, so there is one more. Are you going to go? No, I can definitely go into details. The question was, are you going to go into detail on your extensive soil sampling? And will the results of the hay versus pasture study be public? So to answer the first question. So for that intensive sampling, what we did, we followed the study in 2016. What they did was they had GPS points of where they sampled in each of the fields. They picked 2 fields that were pasture and 2 fields that were hayed, and they took 5 samples in a grid in 3 spots on the field. I wish I had a picture of it to show you, but I can send that out in the follow-up as well. So we went back, and due to funding constraints, we went back to those same fields, but we picked 1 of each. So we picked 1 of the grazed fields and 1 of the hayed fields. We went back to those same 3 points across the field itself. And then at each field, we took 3 samples, kind of in a diagonal shape from there. And we did 0 to 15 centimeters, 15 to 30 centimeters, and then 30 to 60 centimeters. We had a gas-powered auger that allowed us to go to that depth. Here at Wolfe's Neck, we have super duper heavy clay soils. So it was pretty integral for us to have that piece of equipment to be able to get down that deep. Then all of those samples were dried in-house, air dried in-house. We sieved them. We did bulk density in-house, and then we sent them all off to UMaine for their chemical analyses. And then for the water infiltration rate, we did 3 water infiltration rate tests per fields at each of those points across the field. And we used a double ring water infiltration ring for that. I think that's all the things that we did. We also went around and used a penetrometer, but as some of you may know, it can be pretty hard to get conclusive results for something like that. It's nice to know if you have a hard pan to use a penetrometer, but other than that, depending on how much force you're putting on it, it could be quite variable. So we did do that just to sort of get a sense of if that aligns with the bulk density ratings that we got. And we will see as soon as those results are analyzed. And in terms of hay versus pasture being public, absolutely. Like, we will definitely share those results with anybody who is interested once we get them. And we are super excited to continue to track that over time as well. I'm just going to pause for a few more minutes just in case anything else comes up. So I have a question here, which you can probably all see. Perhaps you covered this already. How did you incorporate the seaweed into the cow's diet? So we're currently doing that. And what we've done, so we have a certain inclusion rate of the seaweed. It has to be a certain percentage of the cow's diet. And that right now what we're doing is hand weighing it for the cows and just feeding it to them in their headlocks when we feed them their normal grain ration. So we do feed grain here. We're an organic dairy, but we do feed grain. We're not grass-fed or 100% grass-fed. And so with their grain ration, they get a specially formulated grain, the steady cows, and then they also get a seaweed additive on top of that. We've also mixed it with a little bit of soy hulls covered in molasses to incentivize them to eat it, because it does have a little bit of a fishy smell, and they were not super excited about eating it in the beginning. Is the seaweed additive in pellet, powder, or raw form? It's in, I guess it's flaked. So they harvest it, they dry it, and then they flake it, and they send it to us in a flake form. So it does mix pretty well with their grain. Yeah, and the way that experiment is set up, just while we're on the topic, is we have 2 groups. We have a control group and a treatment group. We have 11 cows in each of those groups, and we're monitoring those throughout the entire study. And so the 11 who get the seaweed will get the seaweed while they're eating. The 11 who are not getting the seaweed get the same ration as the cows that are not in the study. And the way that we're measuring the methane is this piece of equipment called a green feed, made by a company called Sealock out west. The cows go into this green feed. There's panels on either side, so only one cow has access to it at a time. And it recognizes their RFID tag. It drops them a very small ration of grain just to incentivize them to come to the machine. And then it has a methane reader and reads the methane off their breath. And so we have to calibrate that machine to make sure that it's reading the correct gases, and just have general maintenance with that as well. And then we also, because it's reading their RFID tags, we get data on how many times the cows are going there per day, what the methane is coming off their breath. And yeah, those are the primary things. Oops. Let me see if there are any other questions. All right, I guess I will move on if there's nothing else. Any last burning questions? And you can ask them at the end as well if anything comes up, while I continue on. So our last research project is Open Team, which is Open Technology Ecosystem for Agricultural Management. And it's a farmer-driven interoperable platform built to support farmers around the world with the best possible knowledge to improve soil health. And so I'm going to go a little bit into who we are, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and then some specifics about a field methods decision tree and protocol library that we're setting up that I think could be relevant to you all in your work. Who we are. The Open Team community is a collaborative community of farmers, scientists, and researchers, engineers, farm service providers, and food companies that are committed to building open source tools to overcome the challenges most farmers face when it comes to adaptive soil health management. And so here's just some of our partners that we're working with this year, but this list continues to grow on a weekly basis. So at this point, we started with about 40 members a year ago. We've grown to about 200 over the course of the year. And yeah, so this is just a few of those partners. So what we do, we are creating a technological ecosystem and social community to support data interoperability for better soil health insights for farmers, ranchers, researchers, food companies, and other stakeholders. So Open Team offers field level carbon measurement, digital management records, remote sensing, predictive analytics, and input and economic management decision support in a connected platform that reduces the need for manual data entry and simultaneously improves access to a wide array of tools. We support adaptive soil health management for farms of all scales, geographies, and production systems, and are working to accelerate scientific understanding of soil health by providing more high-quality data to researchers collaborating on the project. And so there's a lot of jargon in there. So this is just to show that there's many different ag tech and ag softwares out there, but none of them are connected, as you can see by this X on the left-hand side. The goal of Open Team is to create an ecosystem of technology tools for farmers in which data can flow through an entire ecosystem, making it so farmers only have to enter data once and can use that data in multiple ways. So an example of this would be a farmer entering in their regular record keeping into a software that then can be pushed out to go into their organic certifiers' hands so that they don't have to enter in that data twice. But there's endless examples of that. They could also go to an ecosystem service market or like a greenhouse gas emission modeling tool if they can get some sort of market incentives for that as well. So just to define some of these terms, what is a technology ecosystem? So the technology ecosystem is a complex network or interconnected system. Just as a natural ecosystem is a community of organisms that are linked through nutrient flows, the technology ecosystem is a community of tools and technologies that are linked through data flows. What is open source? Open source is a publicly accessible software design that can be modified and shared by multiple users. This allows the source code to be inspected and enhanced by anyone. Because open source utilizes multiple collaborators, it allows for more control, increased security and stability, additional training opportunities, and the foundation of communities centered around software design. And 3, what is interoperability? So interoperability is a characteristic of a product or system whose interfaces are completely understood to work with other products or systems at present or in the future, in implementation or access, and without any restrictions. So interoperability allows data to flow from one software to another on the back end without having to re-enter any of that data for the user. An open team engages a diversity of developers, organizations, and farmer groups who share a common belief in openness, sharing, and collaboration. The ecosystem includes remote sensing technologies, agroecosystem models to track whole farm emissions and environmental impacts, decision tools to assist with on-the-ground management implementation, adaptive management farmer networks, and observation tools and record-keeping tools, which is so then the goal of interoperability would allow farmers to enter their data once, for example, in a record-keeping software, and then send it to a certifying body or enter it into an agroecosystem model, just so that they can enter it once and use it in many different ways. So this technology ecosystem is already assembled and ready to go. The key technology components of the complete ecosystem are represented within the open team group and can be added to as the community of practice evolves and expands. Once the system is functioning, the same system can be used to support many protocols and test new tools and technologies. These tools and technologies are already being tested by our open team network of farms and organizations, which we call our hubs. The hubs form the basis for the global network of farms, ranches, and supply chains to guide and quantify ecosystem service improvements and link between soil health, food quality, human health, and ag management. Through this network of technology providers, farms, ranchers, universities, food networks, and government agencies, we're working towards a shared technology commons for data intake and management, making access to technology and agricultural data more accessible to growers. Open Team assists growers to get onboarded and set up with the tools. The individual farmer or rancher has complete control and ownership over their data, and through the process of farmer and rancher permissions, data can be shared with the other technology tools in the ecosystem, depending on the individual goals of the farms. And so we meet with each of the hubs individually and help them come up with a plan for which tools that they want to use, how they want to be using them, and how we can help assist them use those goals. And what we're really relying on them for in these first years especially is feedback on the tools so that we can improve them, make them more accessible, and make the user interfaces more friendly so that we can get more farmers using these tools. And I think the key component here is that the farmers own the data in this case, which is pretty rare for most agricultural software these days. So how we work. Open Team has 5 working groups to achieve our goals of interoperability. So the first group is the technology working group. This group was our primary focus for year 1 of the project, which was last year. The technology team identifies opportunities for co-development, prioritizing work packages, and supports interoperability of technologies. So we've grown the number of technologies that are working with us, and we've already started working on that interoperability where we can transfer data from one interface to the other on the back end of things. The field methods working group is our second group, and that bridges the science with the available tools to create a versioned and tiered approach that will support the needs of farmers, ranchers, researchers, and markets. We are currently working on this research question and protocol library and decision tool to help farmers and ranchers choose in-field soil health assessments that fit their research or monitoring needs. And that's what we'll go into a little bit after this overview. Our third group is our hub and network working group. And this group grounds and coordinates the other working groups across scales, geographies, production systems through farmer, rancher, research, and market networks. And so these are the folks that are actually out there using the tools, working with us to provide feedback and make these tools more usable for our general audience. The fourth group is the System Center Design Working Group, and that's focused on creating internal and external social feedback and design processes for the Open Team community. And then lastly, our Racial Equity and Inclusion Working Group. And that group works to amplify the work of our members and support collaborative efforts towards racial equity and inclusion through our Open Team community members. And that's our newest working group. And so some of the shared benefits of Open Team for all of our community members is a shared ag tech toolkit for farmers, field technicians, agronomists, and others, rapid and low-cost in-field assessment tools, greater farmer control over their data portability to value-added incentives, whether that's certification, conservation payments, ecosystem service credits, peer-to-peer learning based on affinities, and that's a big one for our community. We really try to promote peer-to-peer learning and peer-to-peer connection, and a way to measure conservation practice effectiveness overall. So I will pause there for a minute before we go into our tech tools that I want to highlight. So I do have a question here. How long have you been doing this? Is there replicability of Open Team, Susan? So this project has started a year ago, and we will be continuing it for at least 5 years. I'm not really sure about the replicability question. I'm not sure how to answer that. Could other groups join in? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And if you are interested in Open Team, I'll send some links in the follow-up as well. We are always recruiting new people to come and join. It's a totally open community and would love participation at any level. And right now what we offer is we have a monthly onboarding session. Yeah, definitely, if you're in Pennsylvania. The question was, can other groups join in Pennsylvania? But we're all over the country. We have hubs in California, out west, in the southeast, in the northeast. We're all over the place. And actually, if you're in Pennsylvania, if you know of PASA, they're one of our members right now as well. But what we offer isn't by once a month, we have a group onboarding where anybody who is interested in getting involved in Open Team can come to that, learn a little bit more about the details of what that entails to be a part of Open Team, learn more specifics about our work, And then from then on, you get to choose which working groups that you'd like to be involved in, and you can come and go as you please. But definitely encourage all of you to check it out. All right, I will continue on, but feel free to keep populating the chat or the Q&A. And I will keep monitoring it. PASA is joined with many other partners in Pennsylvania Soil Health Coalition and the Mountains to Bay Grazing Alliance. That's great. Awesome. So our open team technology tools. So in year one, we've really focused on our technology ecosystem. We've grown considerably over the course of the year and are working on interoperability, allowing data to be entered into one program and flows into another. And so here are some of the tech tools that we've been working on, making interoperable over the last year and have been testing with our participating hubs. Go back. So the first one is Land PKS, Land Potential Knowledge System. It's a free modular mobile phone app connected to a cloud-based storage, global databases, and models for storing, accessing, and sharing data. Land PKS follows the NRCS in-field soil health assessments to provide farmers with the observational tools they need to assess the health of their soils and plants in the field without sending any samples off for analysis. And what's really nice about this is on the Land PKS app, you can choose to share or not share your data. You always have that permission as the user of these platforms. But if you do choose to share your data, there is an online database where you can go through and click on other farms that are using Land PKS and see what their soil type is, their texture, and learn a little bit more about the soil health in those areas as a way to just learn about what other farms are doing, but also potentially benchmark what you are doing against other farms. The next one is FarmOS, and it's a web-based application for farm management, planning, and record keeping, developed by a community of farmers, developers, researchers, and organizations. The Field Kit is an offline mobile app that connects to your FarmOS in the field. Anyone can download it and use it for free if you host it on your own server, or you can pay a minimal hosting fee to have it hosted through FarmEA, which is run by FarmOS. And so this is what we use here for all of our management data. It works for livestock and crops. We keep track of our crop planning in here. We keep track of our daily livestock moves in here as well. And you can layer in all sorts of data. You can add in soil tests. You can add in all of your inputs, your outputs. And there are ways to filter all of the data so that you can download reports that only have the data that you want to see. And I think the long-term goal for here is to sort of create the data architecture so that this data can easily be transferred to an organic certifying body. And then our next tool is SurveyStack. SurveyStack, which you'll be hearing a lot more about in the upcoming minutes of this talk. SurveyStack is a collaborative research platform to create surveys, collect data, report, and share results. Users collect data using an Android app and Bluetooth or USB connection to attach any sort of measurement data from instruments. So you could include like a scale in here or something like that, or some sort of water sensor, soil sensor. And Open Team is developing our research question and protocol library in SurveyStack for the 2021 field season. So SurveyStack is kind of like any sort of form builder, like imagine Google, like a Google form builder, Google form, except that you can connect hardware to it. And the data that goes into SurveyStack at this point can be directly pushed to a FarmOS account. So if I were collecting soil samples in the field, I could put that data into SurveyStack through a form and it would automatically populate my FarmOS account. So I wouldn't have to put that data into FarmOS afterwards, which is really nice. And then I just wanted to share an example of an implementation of SurveyStack, which is Quick Carbon. So Quick Carbon's mission is a rapid landscape scale soil carbon assessment to make science accessible for land managers for ecological understanding, decision-making, and markets. Quick Carbon uses spectroscopy to estimate soil carbon, and it's still in its testing and calibration phase. Several of our open team hub farms and ranches, including us at Wolfe's Neck, are contributing to this calibration process for the 2021 field season. And so it's just this small handheld spectrometer. You take a soil sample, there's a little solar powered oven in there too, and you dry the samples. This device connects right into SurveyStack and it walks you through a little survey just asking you about the land cover in the area, and then prompts you to dig from 0 to 15 centimeters and then 15 to 30 centimeters. And then you take a measurement of the wet soil and of the dry soil, and it sends those results to Quick Carbon. And the idea is that eventually it would be totally automated and you would immediately get a carbon reading on your phone. So all you have to do is purchase this kit once, and then you can see your carbon for as long as you want to. But right now it's still in that calibration phase. So once you do take a sample, it gets sent to the lab at Yale. They have to do a little bit of analysis in the background, and then they send you your results later. But we're working on calibrating that for all different landscapes and ecosystems. I'm going to stop there again and see if anybody has questions about the tools that we're using. And this is only highlighting 3 of the many tools in our ecosystem. We also have tools that are greenhouse gas modeling systems, ecosystem modeling services, remote sensing softwares as well. So there's a ton of different softwares. These are just the ones that we found are most relevant to farmers right now and are ones that our hubs are going to be using this year. Who is vetting the OS before you accept it as a tool? So in order to be part of Open Team, you have to be open source. And then it just depends. We have a team of developers who, if the software is interested in joining, they come and start joining the meetings, and it ends up being a self-selection process. We're super community oriented, and we all, the tech team, all sort of helping each other out, working towards these common goals. So it becomes very clear if somebody is, or an organization or company is not on board with that. But we haven't had to turn anybody away. So yes. And then the next question was, and are the farmers the ones that give feedback? Yes, they do. So the year 1 was really focused on getting these tech tools together to see if we can make them interoperable and what that actually looks like on the ground. And this year is really focused on getting those tools in the hands of our hubs who have agreed to test them out and work through feedback with them so that we know how easy it is to use these tools, if they're useful, how they're using them. That will help guide what the developers will work on for the next few years, or if they need to, shift a little bit in their development. Oops. Anything else right now? All right, I'm going to keep going. So open team tools in action, field methods, decision support, and research protocol library. So this is open team using the tools, how they're being used in the field. So to talk about the field methods protocol library, I just want to do a little bit of a deep dive into our field methods group. So the field methods working group is one of the 5 within the open team network. We work to bridge the science with the available tools to create a version and tiered approach to research and monitoring that will support the needs of farmers, ranchers, researchers, and market networks. So we're working on this research protocol and decision support tool to guide and standardize sampling methods for farmers, ranchers, and researchers based on their goals. We are at the intersection of the hub and network farms and ranches to share their experiences and test the different protocols. We also have intersection with the tech team to create platforms for collecting this data, analyzing the data, and sharing the data. So in year 1, while the tech team was working on interoperability, the field methods group was gathering information from our robust network of hubs to inform sampling recommendations for year 2. This year, we're working on how Open Team can contribute to pushing science around regenerative agriculture and soil health through ground truthing and calibrating in-field soil tests, remote sensing and ecosystem models, and decision tools using the tech tools and our hub and network farms and ranches. In years 3 through 5, we'll begin to expand out from our hubs as we refine our sampling recommendations and data collection tools. So a little bit about this tiered approach. The field methods group has created this tiered approach that provides an opportunity for a spectrum of participation from farms and ranches, depending on their interests, context, and goals. So at a high level, we aim to provide ranchers and farmers with a set of tools and protocols to monitor ecological function on their property and that help them achieve varying goals for their operation, to test and develop tools and methods that help to better monitor and speed adoption of soil health practices, and to measure ecological function of agricultural landscapes and identify relationships with management practices. So this tiered approach at the tier 1 level, it's just basic understanding of soil health. And this is where we imagine most farms will sort of fall into this tier 1 level. So some of the goals of this are to promote increased understanding of management impacts on soil health, with a particular focus on soil health indicators related to soil carbon, provide users with data that can be used independently for both soil health assessment and monitoring, and to help interpret and provide context for quantitative measurements, and to provide a tool set that can be applied by individuals with limited time, financial resources, and training. At this tier 2 level, this is for ecosystem service markets or certifications primarily. And the goals here are to gather data and use cases that will help in furthering the development of specific open team tools and soil carbon measurement methods, testing of soil carbon accounting methods being used by market managers, and to keep track of management records and practices to help drive different ecosystem models. There's one called DNDC, there's one called COMET, and these are mostly greenhouse gas or ecosystem service models. And then at the tier 3 level, this is where is more focused on general scientific understanding. So some of the goals of the tier 3 farms would be an in-depth testing of tech tools as it relates to soil carbon specifically, open team tech tools that could use in-depth testing would include this quick carbon that I mentioned in collaboration with LandPKS and FarmOS to develop a fuller understanding of the trade-offs of accuracy and costs that will be key to helping various soil health efforts move forward, and to generate data to answer non-standardized key research questions around soil health and help us understand how much certainty you begin to lose with each choice that you make. For example, sampling plans, how you sample, where you sample, how many samples you take, and how that impacts accuracy and precision. So then our research decision tool and protocol library. So our high-level goal here is to help farmers, ranchers, and researchers with guidance on what to measure and how to measure it. Our open team hubs will be working with us through the process of determining what information is needed to make decisions and how they would like to measure, what they would like to measure, and the methods that they should use based on their production systems, scales, research goals, and research and resources. So we're currently working on this decision support tool while simultaneously combing through different soil health assessment methodologies to take note of the considerations that must be taken into account when choosing the correct method for each project. And so, some of our goals for the research decision tool and protocol library are: one, a decision tree to assist farmers, researchers, environmental markets to choose soil assessment protocols for their needs; two, standardized sampling and data collection; three, use data to answer these key research questions; and four, maximize accuracy and precision and minimize sampling costs. So starting with our decision support tool, we're coding 3 levels of surveys into SurveyStack, which is the survey builder that we talked about earlier, that to create a rich user profile for any farm who's participating. And so at the first level, there would be general information about production type, location, soil type, general goals, and their scale. At the second level, second level, it would be field level information to gather information about production type and research at the field level. And at the third level is more project specific information to gather information about specific research, conservation, and or monitoring projects and initiatives occurring at the farm, including any partnerships, funding sources, and etc. And so through this onboarding form, we want to understand the goals and questions that the farms are asking about their production systems and landscapes, and the resources that they have to work on answering those questions. This information will help us guide them to a soil health assessment that fits within their goals, expertise level, and budgets. The decision support tool would then recommend protocols based on this profile created by the user, so that a user doesn't have to enter in this information every time they're seeking methodology decision support. So an example of why we've decided to go through these different levels would be Wolfe's Neck Center, right? We're a nonprofit educational and research farm in Maine. We have production, we have 600 acres of dairy cows, we have small ruminants, poultry and pigs, and small scale vegetable production. We're a public farm with a campground. We host educational programs for kids and adults. And much of our soil work is used for demonstration and teaching our community about agriculture and soil health. However, we do have very focused research projects that are in collaboration with other institutions and universities, in which we need to use more rigorous methods for soil health quantification. So we would want different recommendations for protocols depending on those goals of each of those specific projects, as well as depending on our broader goals. So this allows for just more flexibility, something like this. So this is a little diagram that just sort of shows our decision tree in Google format. And so we're currently working on coding this into SurveyStack to collect information from our participating hubs. Because we're an interactive and participatory community, in our first round of implementation of this survey, we're going to conduct these interviews along with the onboarding survey to solicit real-time feedback and answer any questions that the participants may have as they fill out the survey, so we can improve the questions and the logic for our next version, make it a little bit more clear. But this just goes through that, we're asking for their high-level goals. So say your goals are carbon sequestration and greenhouse gas emission reduction. Then you'd have follow-up questions. So are you able to frequently collect a large volume of soil? This question has since been changed. because large volume of soil could mean anything. But then you can go no and yes. And this question is sort of getting at what's your funding look like for soil sampling, right? Like, are you able to collect and send off a bunch of samples or not really? And then it gives you recommendations based on that. You know, if you can't, you might want to go for a model-based approach. If you can, maybe you can do measurement and model so that we can start to ground truth some of the modeling. And then that would lead you to follow-up questions, and then it would lead you to recommendations on which protocol to use. And so then I just wanted to show you what this could actually look like. So once we have this decision tool in SurveyStack, we can also program the protocols into SurveyStack themselves. And so that's a way to really standardize data collection. So if you're a farm and you're tracking water infiltration rate year after year, you can make a water infiltration rate template in SurveyStack, and whoever is going out and collecting that data can use that survey in SurveyStack and make sure that the data is collected the same way year after year. We've created one of these. This is actually a mock-up of a water infiltration rate protocol that we were experimenting with this fall, just to show you the potential of what this could look like. First, you can geotag your location. So this little blue dot is where I am, and now that's where I'm going to have my sample being taken. And I'm going to be collecting water infiltration rate in the field, so I can click on that. And then it gives you instructions for how to actually collect that data. So this is just going through, you know, clear the vegetation, place a piece of wood on top of the double ring, hammer it in, place the ruler, and then what to do next. And then you enter in your water level at 0 seconds, and it'll prompt you to do this at 30 seconds, at a minute 30, at 2 minutes, until all of the water has left, or until you hit 15 minutes in our case. But whatever the protocol it is, you can just put it in here. And so you're entering it in real time and it's saving it for you. And then at the end of that, it can actually calculate your water infiltration rate in centimeters per second. And then it'll give you the results of that. And as I mentioned earlier, the SurveyStack can go directly into a FarmOS account. So if you had both of those, and in our case we do, this data would automatically go into our FarmOS account, and then we would have it there stored as this field has a water infiltration rate of this. It'll be geotagged with its actual location. So you have record of that. And so that is, there's, you know, a lot of moving parts here, and we could not achieve all of this with the support and input from our community. So each member of our Open Team community and Wolfsneck community really helps push this forward. And I'm so interested to see if you have any feedback or any comments on this stuff specifically, of if you think it would be useful in the field. Yeah, I'd just be very interested to hear what you have to say. And I, again, will open it up to questions and comments. And I have one right here, actually. Who is completing the soil health assessments and testing on Wolfsneck? And who do you anticipate doing the tests on a typical working farm? So the tests are actually, it's totally up to the farms themselves. At Wolfsneck, I'm doing it. But at any of our participating hubs and farms, we are just simply providing guidance on their own research projects. So all of our hubs come to us with specific research goals in mind, or monitoring goals in mind. So for example, one of our farms is really interested. They just acquired a bunch of state land, and they started this extensive grazing program there. And they want to monitor if their grazing practices are actually impacting the land positively. And so what we can do is help them achieve their goals by connecting them with the right people, or connecting them with the right research methodologies to be able to track that change over time. But we're not mandating that they take any soil samples or doing any assessments. It's just merely whatever they want to research. We just want to provide some guidance on how to actually conduct those measurements. I have another comment. It would be useful for our various farmer and partner coalitions. How do I find out more? I will send over a bunch of links to Michelle that she will send to all of you, and my email address. I will send that to you as well, and you can feel free to reach out, and whoever wants to join one of those onboarding sessions is more than welcome to. Oh, hi, Nan. Sounds like you need help from practitioners to create appropriate and effective tools. Are there stipends for farmers assisting this development? Right now, there are not stipends for farmers, but we're hoping to move in that direction, of course. But I totally agree. That is exactly what we need right now. Help from practitioners to make sure that these tools are effective. And we're doing that with our hubs this year. We have a group of hubs that are a mix of farms, ranches, large food companies who have big networks of farms and ranches. And so they're testing them out for sort of like the first round. And then we'll see where we go from there. But yeah, I totally agree. Any other questions or comments?
I think everyone's good.
Great.
But I will put all your information and the links you send me in the email I sent out after with the recording link.
Sounds great. Thank you all.
Leah, thank you so much.
Of course.
And I just want to thank everyone for coming and remind you that next week, Granite State Grazers will be presenting grazing less than 101, pretty much. And that ends our winter learning series next week, but it also kicks off a series Granite State Grazers is doing for and in partnership with NRCS. So it's open to the public. It's training for professionals. It's training for newbies. Anyone who has any interest at all, go on our website at grazenewhampshire.com and you can see the whole list of the webinars and what they'll be exploring. And again, thank you. I'm going to let everyone go. I think it's supposed to start to rain later. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. And have a great Wednesday. Bye.